Recording in progress. We're being recorded. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Delaware. Welcome to my living room studio. Here's my sunflower for Ukraine right there. Glad everybody could make it tonight. I got a lot to show you. I always have way too much planned. So what I did, I know what I'll start with. I said I was going to give away paintings. So I picked a name out of a hat. Actually, I picked a name off of the screen. And I'm going to see if Dennis Fowler would like either one of these paintings. So Dennis, you don't have to take them, or you can take whichever one you want. You can put it in the chat if you want one. If you don't want to take it, you don't have to. I'll pick somebody else to take it. So these were from the, of course, from the ball jar class that we had last time. So anyway, Dennis, one of these is yours if you want it, and it's free shipping or wherever you are, as long as you're not in Russia or someplace. So anyway, I have a lot planned for tonight, and I have a whole bunch of different things that I want to show you. And I have so many things I want to show you. I knew I couldn't paint every single one of them in 2 hours. So what I've been doing is filming for 2 days. And I've actually filmed some of these demos. I got it, Dennis. You're welcome. You take the one on the right. And you can just send Tara your address, or you can send me your address. I'll put my email up for you. Excuse me, I'm still hoarse. So I've been recording yesterday and today. So I've made like 3 or 4 different films. So I'm going to be able to play those and then talk over them and talk about the colors. I did speed them up a little bit, so we're not just sitting around watching paint dry. And then I'm going to do a couple of live demos as well. So of course I have way more planned than I actually can do, but we're going to do our best, because this is a really big part of who I am as an artist and what I like to paint. I love doing these imagined landscapes because it frees me up. It gives me ideas for new work. Some of my best work often comes from just playing. So I'm going to do a little bit of a slideshow for you to show you some of the landscapes that I just kind of make up. There's a lot of sort of tree shapes everywhere. So it's hard because when I do these, I don't always write down the materials. I don't write down my process. So sometimes trying to go back and figure out exactly how I did something, I don't know how I did it sometimes. I try to repeat stuff and I sometimes just can't do it. So I'm going to do my best to try to show you the technique that I used. It may not look exactly like the painting that you see, but it's going to give you maybe a jumping off point. So anyway, this is a great thing to do if you're not sure what to paint, if you feel like you're a little bit stuck, if you're worried about making a mistake, right? So it's an imagined landscape. You can't make a mistake. It's never existed before. So I'll show you, here's my table. I did these 2 the other day. I'm going to demo these for you tonight. These are just panels of color that suggest a landscape. And these were both done on like a 300-pound paper. I think it's like 7 by 14, one in mostly blues, and then one in, thank you, I got you're in Plattsburgh. Cool, Dennis. We'll have to get together and paint this summer. And then this one is kind of in greens. These are both done in one go. It's kind of a wet and wet. So I'm going to show you this technique tonight. And then you can take the technique and then turn it into your own idea. These are just how I've sort of figured things out. So let me go over to my slideshow. First, I'm going to take a sip of my seltzer. So I'm going to go over to my slideshow here. So this was an Imagine landscape, 3 colors. It was Venetian red, cobalt blue, and yellow ochre. 1 wash top to bottom. And then the white splatter is just gouache on a toothbrush. And I'm going to try to, if I have enough time, show you this tonight. Super simple. Really just made it up, did not have a photo reference. Did the background first, wet into wet, and then just started moving the shapes forward. Gets a little warmer as it comes towards us. Suggestion of snow, suggestion of a path. This is the hematite genuine. I did a whole workshop on this before, and again, just made up. Usually I don't add color to these hematite genuine paintings, but this one looks so much like a waterfall. I just threw a little sap green on it, and I think a little bit of lavender, and that was it. And here's another of the hematite. No, this isn't hematite. This is the, whatever the green one is, the apatite, green apatite, that's what it is. And then gouache, because it was so messy, I just painted in a white path. So again, all made up. Here's just a little landscape. This is sepia. This is a little teeny painting, 8 by 10, but it looks huge. Probably 10 minutes. It does have a little teeny bit of Chinese white, just because I wanted to bring back some of the white paper. But again, just top to bottom, not too big of a brush. And look what sepia can do. Look at the different degrees of the sepia, the light sepia in the back, the dark sepia. And I do use the Winsor Newton sepia. I think there might be a little teeny bit of yellow ochre or raw umber in that midground. Here's, this was a wet and wet cadmium orange. And then it looks like I must have put I can't remember, a lamp black on it. And then I actually floated pastel in it. So that is like a cobalt green pastel. And I sprayed it with water and then sort of just moved it back and forth and got that kind of fun effect. I actually did this demo today, or one just like it. So I'm going to show you how I did this. This was just made up. It was actually a class exercise that I did a couple years ago, and it's just out of my head. But it turned out, so I've had so many people that want to buy this. I'm like, I'm sorry, it's from years ago. So anyway, I did film this today. So I'm going to show you how I paint something like this. Again, is it a landscape? It's suggestive of a landscape. It could be sea, it could be sky. It's kind of like a Turner kind of light. I'm going to demo this for you as well tonight. I did make a film of this. And a lot of this is like wet and wet, drippy, sort of out of control. Oh, and here's a similar, here's like the one I just showed you on my desktop, kind of in a similar palette. The little swirls at the top, that was just lifted with a flat brush. And again, that was all just done in one go. Here's the green version of it. Here is just, that was a class demo, and it was really just my opaques. It was neutral tint, verditer, lavender, Naples yellow, jaune brilliant, and sepia, and the white of the paper. And this was a fun one. This was on rough paper. I don't usually use rough paper. And then I used some really granulating pigments. I used transparent red oxide, transparent yellow oxide, and cobalt blue. So this is just 3 colors. And again, just sort of made up. I mean, I do spend a lot of time in the mountains and on the water, so I've got these landscapes in my head, as we all have the landscapes that, that we're familiar with. Here's another one, cadmium, yellow, orange, mostly little permanent rose, and then that's mostly cerulean on the top. with like some Payne's gray. And then I just lifted out that little person in the boat, just scratch that out. This was a fun one. I was just playing. This was done on a piece of scrap paper. And I was just playing with trying to float a opaque pigment on top of dark, heavy darks for trees, like snow on trees. So I started sort of in the middle of the painting in that light tree line and worked my way to the left. So it goes purple, and then I put in some of those dark trees behind. Again, I didn't have any intention of making a painting. I was just playing. And then I was like, oh, well, I might as well keep going. And then it's Prussian blue in the background. And then I came back over to where that moon is and laid in a little bit of the Jaune Brilliant #1. I got the texture just from using the spray bottle. So that's what looks like stars. That's just from the spray bottle. And then I worked my way down over to the right side, sort of looked like a reflection in a pond. So I really just did sort of a clockwise painting. And then I was like, oh, that's pretty nice. And that it was done, but there was I didn't have any goal in mind. I was just playing. So I'm going to try to show you little bits of some of these paintings so you get an idea. But it's amazing if you just say, I'm going to try this and just see where it takes you. I did this just the other night. I'm like, I didn't know what to paint. It was warm. It was like 75 here in Delaware. And I was thinking of all the places where the snow is melting. So this was a piece of scrap hot press paper. And I wet it and just, again, sepia. That's what all that brown is sepia. Just with a big flat brush, 2 big shapes of sepia. And then I brought some lavender in. And then it was really just lifting and laying it back on and lifting and laying it back on. And then I did come in with a little bit of gouache. But I just like the feeling of it. Again, just playing. And here's a fun one that combines the hematite genuine, and it has a little bit of everything. It probably is too overdone, but I kind of liked all that texture in the foreground. I may crop it, or it just may be one of those paintings that just sits at the house and never goes anywhere. So, or I'll just paint on the back. Or cut it up, make a collage out of it or something. And this is a fun one. I was trying to do a little sunset over my house in the Adirondacks, and it just didn't really work. So I took it on my wall. I'll show you what I did on my wall. I'm like, I'm going to edit this. I'm going to turn it upside down and say, oh, look, it's a bonfire with some trees in the distance. So isn't that interesting? So it didn't work the other way, but it's kind of beautiful this way as some kind of eternal flame or, but again, just playing, just seeing what happens and not being disappointed in myself if I don't have a finished piece. Here's another little 8x10 sepia and neutral tint. So 2 colors and the white of the paper. And here's another hematite genuine. This is a fun one. That's just the Jaune Brilliant, the Naples yellow, and I think it was mineral violet and neutral tint. And I just did a lot of laying it on, taking it off, laying it on, taking it off. And again, using a lot of opaques. You're gonna see me use a lot of opaques tonight. These are little 8x8s. I start at the top and I work my way down. I use a smaller brush and use a spray bottle, some heavy paint here. I look for some kind of a passage through. It's just made up, but we sort of know what it is. It's the mountains and trees and a river. And here's kind of its companion piece. That's not a very good photograph of that one. All right, so that's what I have. That's the slideshow there, and I'll show you. Let me just put my desk here.
Hey, Sarah.
So, yes.
Someone was just asking, do you use granulation with hematite genuine?
The hematite genuine is granulating. That's all it does. Like, this is nothing but hematite genuine, the entire painting. And I filmed this morning at 7 o'clock. So I actually have this whole thing on video for you so you can see. It's crazy that that is just one color that does that and creates all that texture. And then it's really just the spray bottle that gives me some of those feelings. And I just sort of saw a little bit of a waterfall running through there. So yes, hematite genuine is a fantastic pigment. I've also found that lunar black does the same thing, and that's also a Daniel Smith pigment. Yes, the hematite genuine is Daniel Smith. So try the lunar black too. That does the same kind of thing as this. It's a little cooler. This is a little warmer, has a little bit of a brown tint to it. So you can actually mix this with the lunar black. This is pure hematite genuine though. So I filmed that. I also filmed this, which is sort of supposed to be like that other one that we looked at earlier. So I have a film of how I do this with the layering. And then I did another film of this. So I have quite a few. And then I'm going to show you how to kind of paint these kind of things. And of course, we only have 2 hours. So we'll see. So I'm going to play a couple of, and again, I made videos just because it's much easier for me to do more demos for you that way, because I wouldn't be able to clean up and be that organized trying to do these in a row, because there's so many different pigments. I've changed my palette a lot today. So I'm going to start with the first one, and this is just, and I've talked about this before the last time I did a Imagine Landscape demo, but this is very important. If you don't know what to paint, if you're sort of new to painting, you really want to think about ratio of pigment to water, and the value range, a value range of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, being able to mix all those different values from one pigment. Sometimes you can't do it from a yellow, but you certainly can do it from a neutral tint or something. Because so often we get overwhelmed with a color and we forget that color has a value. So I'm just going to share with you this exercise that I filmed, and it's just these neutral tint exercises. I did speed it up a little bit so that we don't have to just sit and watch paint dry. And it is on a little bit of a different angle, so be patient with me on this. So let me just get this going here. Let's make sure everything works. Hi, Benita. Oh, I'm glad you're here. I saw you were on the list, but I hadn't seen you. All right, we're just waiting. We're getting a little spinny thing going. Hold on. It'll come. Oh, here we go. All right, so this is a piece of Saunders Waterford 140-pound cold press, and half sheet. You could use any kind of paper with this, and this is just neutral tint, and I took tape and taped it off, and I made 6 little squares. So you can do it however you want to. Again, it's just a great exercise, and what I'm doing is just starting at the top. I'm on like a 40-degree angle, pretty steep. And I work my way from the top to bottom, and try to shift the ratio of pigment to water. Here and there, I leave a little bit of white paper. And remember, this is not necessarily one of those workshops where you have to paint along, because you're going to get so much information. It might be that, I mean, you certainly can, but we're going to cover a lot of ground. And again, when I was doing these, I had no goal in mind. I'm just trying to move the paint down the page. And I'm using an Escoda, let's see, that is a Prado brush, Prado. I think it's a number 12. And you can see that the paper is on an angle, because you see the dripping that we're getting in the panels. So again, just a great exercise if you have trouble mixing your values. Try something like this. You could also use sepia, you could use indigo, anything that is a really saturated pigment would work. A Payne's gray works. I love the neutral tint because it's really sort of smoky. And the trick is leave some white paper. What happens when I do this exercise with people is we end up just with like a really dark piece of paper. We forget that we have to leave some of the lights in there. So again, and there's no wrong or right when you do these. This what I'm doing now. I started a little bit lighter at the top. I always try to leave a little bit of white paper. And you see how wet the paint, like it's very juicy. I have a nice bead going. And this is double time. This is not how fast I paint, though sometimes it looks like I paint this fast. So these squares are about, what are they, like 6 by 6 each, I guess. 5 by 5, maybe. So again, just a really good exercise, and do these as many times as you can. Again, if you're trying to figure out how to make values, right? This is a good exercise. So it ends up sort of looking like a mountain and a lake and a cloud, and I just leave it alone and I move on. These were all literally done in one go. It took me about maybe half an hour to do all of these. I cut off the bottom of this a little bit, but you can see I'm doing dry brush. See that nice skipping? So you almost get like a nighttime scene with little lights in the sky or something. And you'll be able to see this. I photograph it and show it to you separately. It's hard to see it at the bottom of the screen like this. But again, paint it and move on. So that's the neutral tint. I used to use the neutral tint from, Eileen is asking if it's a Winsor Newton neutral tint. I have actually switched to the Daniel Smith neutral tint because I believe it's actually more neutral. The Winsor Newton neutral tint has gone a little warm. I think they changed their formula. So, I mean, they're both great, but I now use the Daniel Smith neutral tint. I like the way, I like that it really is neutral. If you want to make a neutral tint from your pigments, you can make it from equal parts ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, and then you add a little teeny bit of alizarin crimson, and that will make a neutral tint. So you can look at it and it's not really warm and it's not really cool. It's sort of right in the middle. And Melissa's saying, why use neutral tint? I just like it because of its neutrality. But I did say you could use Payne's gray for these exercises. You could use any dark. A sepia would work. I have neutral tint in my palette because I like adding it to my pigment because it neutralizes the pigments. So I get nice grays when I use a neutral tint. And it's just, I love it for these value studies. So anyway, the Daniel Smith neutral tint is the one that I like to get. So almost finished with this. And as you see, I laid it on and I left it alone. You don't want to go back on top of these while they're wet. You want to let them dry. And they're going to dry 30% lighter than how it looks now. So you'll see in just a second, I'm going to go back once they're dry. I go back in and I put a little couple pops of dark here and there on them. And you'll see a little bit of a slideshow coming up. Yeah, that one in the corner is really dark. There they are. So a little bit of dark. See those little bits of dark I put in. Look how luminous they are. There we go. And it's beautiful just as a panel. It's really quite amazing what it looks like once you pull the tape off of that. Okay, so here's another exercise. And again, you're going to get all these exercises. This is going to go on, let me just stop this for a second. It's going to go on YouTube. So what you're going to be able to do is when you go on YouTube, if you want to slow all of these exercises down, you go to the bottom right on the YouTube thing, and it will allow you to change the speed. So you can go to 25% or 50%. So anything that you want to slow down, you're going to be able to do that on YouTube, which is where they post everything. So, and I just figured it takes so much time, going through each one of these at regular time. I just speeded everything up. All right, so we're going to go back here. So we have another set of exercises. And this is another exercise that you can do that resembles kind of a landscape. Here it comes. And this is speeded up pretty much. That's just neutral tint and cerulean blue on the top. And remember, you can slow this down when you watch the replay on YouTube. I'm working on a 40-degree angle, so it's just a little neutral tint at the top. I'm just laying down my first layer of pigment, right? And I'm not looking at a photograph. I'm just suggesting like sort of different mountains. And the color scheme is kind of blues, greens, and purples. Just working my way top to bottom. And this looks pretty dark now, but it's going to dry 30% lighter. And Cindy's saying, is this wet on wet or dry brush? That is a dry piece of paper, and I'm just working top to bottom. So now I dried it. I wet that top a little bit, and I'm just adding a little more pigment. So what I'm bringing in now is the second application of paint. So this is the second set of values, and my job now is to leave a path of light. So I'm using the exact same colors that I just used, but what I'm doing now, and I'm just using them in a little bit of a stronger value, but I'm leaving that underpainting as the light. And using the same colors as I go. There's sap green in here, there's cobalt blue, there's ultramarine blue, there's some lavender, just whatever's on your palette. I think there's a little cobalt turquoise, but you can see it's amazing that underpainting now becomes a path of light. And just a fun exercise to try. And you want that first wash to be light enough, right? You don't want it to be too dark, because it is going to be our light in our second application. So again, just a fun exercise, because you can do them over and over and over again. And you don't have to again, you don't have to worry about what the result is because you're just learning to move the paint. So the pigment in that one was cerulean blue, cobalt blue, maybe a little bit of ultramarine, some sap green. And remember, you don't have to write all this down right now because you're going to have a whole month to kind of come back, listen to what I'm saying, watch the videos. Again, you can slow it down. It doesn't really matter which colors I'm using. You can use whatever color you want to use. I sort of stayed in the blues and purples and greens. You could run through your whole palette. I'm going to let somebody into the waiting. There we go. So 2 interesting exercises that you can do. I'm going to move on. I have another video. I've been a busy girl. All right, so back to, I did film my, the hematite genuine exercise, because I had so many people get in touch with me after that hematite genuine workshop and say that they were frustrated. They couldn't quite figure out genuine to move on their paper. So this morning at 7, I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna play and see what happens. And I'm like, I'm gonna film it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So sometimes it's easier for me to be a little freer when I'm not trying to teach it and be free at the same time. So I had my headphones in, I was listening to music, I had my coffee. So so again, this is a piece of scrap paper. It is a half sheet. I am on a 40-degree angle. I even had some dirty water, and I'm using dirty water. It'll show you I'm putting water down first. So I'm going to show you 2 different ways to use that hematite genuine. You can put water down first, or you can just lay it right on the paper. And I don't usually use dirty water. It just happened to be dirty. But you'll see. So I put water down, and then all I'm using is the hematite. What people tend to do with this is not use enough paint. So you're gonna take the paint, you have to mix it with some water, but all I'm doing is letting it flow onto that wet paper. I'm not really pushing the paint around. And you'll have a chance to watch this, and hopefully the quality is good enough. I recorded this in really high resolution, but Zoom will, of course, kind of kill that. Alina is saying, was that one painted on a watercolor block? The last one I did was a sheet from a watercolor block. This is just a half sheet of, what is it? Oh, it's on the back of a glass painting, and it is, what is this paper? Arches 140. But again, working on a pretty good angle. And I know it doesn't really look like much right now, but if anybody took that hematite workshop, you have to give it time to start moving. So it doesn't look very interesting quite yet. There I go. I'm splattering a little. So the last shape I made, I did not put water down yet. I wanted you to see, you can do it both ways. It's a little easier when you do put some water down. And again, I'm just sort of making this up. So I am mixing some water in with it. You can see that, but I'm going back and touching in a little bit of heavier paint on those places where it's already wet. And what am I using? I'm using a Skoda Prado. I think it's a number 16. Again, working on a pretty good angle, and I think that's the main thing that people aren't doing when they're using this hematite, is they're not using enough paint. You can't be shy about using paint. And as I say, the only place it goes to waste is in the tube. So I splatter water. I'm going to take a spray bottle in just a minute, lightly spray it. You're going to see me turn this whole thing upside down so that it will start to drip. Carol is saying, is the hematite from Winsor Newton? It is actually a Daniel Smith pigment. So you can go to Jerry's or Cheap Joe's or Dick Blick and just look up the Daniel Smith pigments, and it's a whole line of their pigments called Primatech, Primatek, and they all have a lot of sediment in them. This one, this Hematite Genuine, and the Lunar Black, sometimes the Lunar Blue, are the only ones that, for me, that really have enough of that texture. And we'll start to, it's just starting to move now. Literally, it takes, what, 10 minutes for this paint to get going. And I'm just adding, use the spray bottle on it. And you can see I'm not really in a hurry. I'm just saying, how does this shape relate to this shape? So in some places there's more paint, and I take just a wet brush and touch it on the edge. And don't worry if it drips, drips are good. Now it's starting to move. But it's just, it's amazing that one pigment does all of this. It is so much fun to play with. It's really neat. I got an email from one of my students about 3 weeks ago, and she had been in my class up in, I taught for the New England Watercolor Society, and I showed the, here, now I'm going to turn it upside down so it can drip. Because the water will push back through the pigment and it creates rivulets. So you get this amazing texture. There it goes. So anyway, this woman, I was showing the class how to use the Hematite Genuine. I brought extra tubes of paint, so I gave everybody a big blob of hematite on their paper. And I'd also been teaching crows. So one woman said, "Do you mind if I use my own photo, and I'm going to use the hematite?" So she had this photo of a crane, and I just left her alone and let her paint. And I knew she had something good going. I didn't talk to her at all about what she was doing. I just said, "Oh, this is really nice." Turns out she got into the American Watercolor Society show with this painting from this Hematite Genuine, and taking her, what I was teaching about crows, she turned it into her own piece, and I didn't give her any assistance at all on the painting. And it was really exciting to see someone take the little clues that I give them, or the exercises, and then turn it into something so successful. So that I didn't get in, but she did. So that made me happy. So same thing, I'm just adding a little bit of dirty water over here on the right-hand side. I work on a cold press. This does not work as well on a hot press. And you want to use good paper. Don't use an inexpensive paper, because you need the tooth of good paper, and you need at least 140 pounds to get this texture, to get these rivulets that this paint does. And Carol says, amazing to see how much expression and color comes from one pigment. I know it does. It looks like more than one color. And it looks like I've got like some kind of magic brush going, and it's just it's just letting the paint, letting the paint do its thing. And again, I'm not pushing the paint around that's already on there, right? I load up a brush, I lay the paint into the wet paper, or I create a shape like that. That didn't have water in it. And knowing that it's going to start moving again, because I'm working on a pretty good angle. If you work flat, you're not going to get this kind of texture. And it's so freeing. I mean, this kind of a landscape, just making it up as I go, because there's no really wrong way of doing this. I love just following the paint. And boy, this paint will take you so many places. You could do a cityscape with this. Somebody that I showed this technique to, she now uses it in her portraits. And it's just amazing to see what she has done. So again, a little more value in some of those places. A little dirty water. And then when I don't know what to do, I just throw paint. I just splatter. Because the texture can make it a little more interesting as opposed to just the bare skeletal trees. Here we go, upside down again. And again, it's just letting some of that water move back up through the forms. And you see, I'm not pushing the paint around. I'm just letting it do its thing. And you want to be careful when you use a spray bottle, because you don't want to spray all the paint off. I really am just misting it so that the pigment can move a little bit. Again, a little heavier paint somewhere, and that's pretty heavy. It has a little bit of water, but you can see it's almost dry brushing in those dark shapes towards the bottom. Because I know I'm going to come back and soften an edge, or take a spray bottle and soften an edge. And again, when you're on YouTube, you can speed this. This is actually real time. This one is not speeded up. If you want to speed it up, you certainly can. If you want to slow it down, you can. And Carol is saying, did you spray it when it was upside down? I don't think I did spray it when it was upside down. I just sort of let the water that was pigment that was on there just go up into the trees a little bit. Because then what happens when you turn it back around the right way, it'll move back down through there again. Oh, there's my friend Betty. Hi, Betty. Hi, honey. Oh, it's so good to see everybody's here. So almost done with this. So you see here and there, I'm going in with almost pure pigment, darkening some of the areas where the rivulets have sort of gone around. So I'm kind of thinking about negative space. This is such a great exercise. You don't have to know how to draw a tree to do a whole painting of trees like this, right? There's no drawing at all. We're just letting the paint take us somewhere. And it's been one brush the whole time. Just I think it's either 12 or 16. I can't remember. This morning seems like such a long time ago. Just thinking about the direction of that shape in the foreground. It's kind of, so I just took a spray bottle and sprayed that edge. There we go. And these are so much fun because sometimes I could just leave those edges just like that because it's interesting. It's almost like a vignette at the bottom. You don't have to finish it all the way. But then I started seeing a waterfall, so I'm like, all right, I'll just take it into waterfall land. So you can take this hematite, you can mix it with cerulean. It's beautiful with cerulean. It's really pretty with lavender. I like it, especially with the cerulean, because the cerulean also granulates. So they will sort of repel each other and do this little rivulet dance together. Oh, look at those trees. They are good and gnarly, aren't they? So this is where I'm like, oh, that could be a waterfall. So look, that's water coming down there and then coming in this direction. So that's pretty much done. Just a couple more minutes. You know, this is taking a long time. But all of those root shapes, I didn't make any of those. The paint just did it itself, which is amazing. Again, here and there, just popping a teeny bit of dark, and you can always let it dry and come back in and start working on it again. It'll continue to do this, even on top of what's already there. And it's pretty permanent. It doesn't pick up. It's pretty staining. So I think that's, oh, there it goes upside down again. I just leave it there and let it sort of drip back into itself. I don't think I sprayed that. There we go. Yeah, I must have, because there's the spray bottle in my hand. Just lightly spray, right? If I spray, I'm at least usually like 18 inches away. You don't want to be too close. So let's see, I'm just going to move us a little faster through this. Almost done. I almost thought about putting a figure that's standing up there, which I might do. It kind of looks like a figure. Could be somebody fly fishing up there, or and then a little bit of calligraphy branches, which I probably didn't need. So again, this is like a half sheet, pretty much done. I think that's it. All right, let me stop that, and I'm just going to show you my desktop. So here's the painting, and really I didn't do anything else to it. So all of this marvelous texture is just from the pigment. Did I use a different brush for the calligraphy? You know what? I don't remember. I might have picked up one of my, I just got these. You could use like Escoda Perla, Perla. They have really good points. But I just got these. And they don't tell me, they don't pay me to talk about their products. This is Rosemary and Company. These are the Snowdrop pointed rounds. This is a 12 and this is a 16. Look at the points on those girls. Aren't they gorgeous? This is about a $12 brush and this is about a $10. Like the whole order was $25. It came from the UK, which is amazing. They will ship from the UK. So just go to Rosemary and Company. And again, these are the Snowdrop pointed rounds. They are just amazing. So I got the 12 and the 16, and then I don't buy a lot of little brushes. So here's the other one I got. And this is the number 2. Look at that little teeny point, just amazing. So great brushes, not too expensive. Even the shipping was like $15 maybe. But I use these a lot for like when I'm coming back in to do calligraphy or smaller lines. So there's that exercise. And I'll show you, look, on the back is one of the glass exercises. That's a shame. I should have put it on a good piece of paper. But anyway, that's what it looks like. And then I could come in, I could put a little bit of Naples yellow or Jean Brilliant in here. I could put a sky in, sunrise or sunset. I could touch little greens in here for ferns. Again, just a great way to kind of take yourself to a place where you can just play and let the paint guide you. I just can't say enough for this kind of pigment. Okay, so right back at, I'm going to go back to another exercise. So I filmed this painting. This is like a nightscape. It's a lot of kind of fingernails and scratching. And so this is 2 layers. I did speed up this second video a little bit. Again, this is so much fun. This is any colors that you want to use are fine. It doesn't really matter. I'll talk about the colors as I do it. So there's no white paint in here. That's just the white paper. And this is mostly fingernails. That's why my fingernails are always dirty, because I'm always scratching into this. So let me show you our next film. And I hope I felt bad doing it this way, but I knew I could give you more information by filming these ahead of time. All right, let's get this going. So this was at 8 o'clock this morning. All right, come on. It's just spinning a little bit. It's got to catch up. There we go. So 14 by 20. This is, and I'm working on an angle. This is just lavender. I have my big squirrel mop. Again, remember, you can slow this down when you're looking at it on YouTube, on the recording. So if you want to, see what I'm doing, I'm really just squishing the paint in here. Oh, Denise says, great idea to film. Thank you, Denise. I just knew there was so much I wanted to cover, and this was the only way I could stay organized. So that was lavender, verditer. This is a little bit of cerulean in here. I'm just working from sort of cools to warm. So this is some kind of a landscape, right? And I'm just squishing in pigment. That's a little bit of brown matter mixed with a little bit of purple or something. It could be some transparent red oxide. Again, it's all moving towards me, and I'm putting it on pretty dry. Can you see that? It's not super wet. I'm really trying to sort of suggest depth. And you do get that sense of depth just from those purples being all the way in the back and the warmer colors being up closer to us. This is not going to look like anything for most of the painting. And then it sort of all comes together. So now I'm just going to I'm going right into some sepia. So I'm going to put a tree shape right over top of what I've just done. Just pure sepia. And actually, I should just say it's a vertical, right? Because we don't want to think too much about trees. And I am using the brush I just talked about, which is the Rosemary and Company Snowdrop. And you can see how thick the paint is that I'm putting on here. When I do my trees, you see that I start at the bottom and work my way up. And it's not a real tree, it's a make-believe tree. So it can look like anything we want it to. It doesn't have to look real. So right over top of the pigment that I just laid down, there's another one. And the paint's pretty heavy. So this is not real wishy-washy. This is just get the shapes in, strong pigment. And this is like more than double time. I think this is like speeded up to 4. So again, you can slow it down. There's a little bit of yellow ochre. And the paint is not too wet. You see, it's just enough that it softens the edges of those trees. Just putting a little pigment at the bottom now. Still one brush for the whole painting. And I'm just thinking it's sitting on a shoreline, maybe. I realize at the end of the day, I've got an awful lot of trees today, and I hope that's okay. It's not about the actual forms, it's kind of about these different techniques. So I got most of that in. I think I'm looking for my hair dryer. Oh, I know, I'm looking for my credit card scraper. So don't throw out your old credit cards. You want to cut them up into little shapes. So because that paint is thick on there, do you see what I'm able to do with that little piece of credit card? I'm able to scrape through to that pigment that's underneath. So you see the greens and the reds through there. Going to add a little more paint in here now, a little more dark at the shoreline. Yeah, so just cut up your old credit cards or your license into little odd pieces. You don't want them all to be the same size. But it's a great way to create texture. Oh, here comes the fingernails. And then more sepia and ultramarine blue. So I'm just darkening some of the things. There we go. So when I originally did this, I did not have a plan. This was just sort of made up. The first time I did this technique, it was not a night painting. I was just trying to sort of get a sense of depth. So it is now dry. I used a hair dryer and dried it. This is Prussian blue. The painting is completely dry. I'm taking pure Prussian blue, painting over top of the whole thing and creating a night scene. And the underpainting is completely dry. I did dry it with a hair dryer. So it goes from being daytime to a moonlit night, and you'll see it'll come back a little. I use the Prussian blue because it's super transparent. You could also use like an Antwerp blue. Antwerp does the same thing. I wouldn't use ultramarine blue because it's a little too raw. But the Prussian and the Antwerp are really nice. You could also use like Indanthrone, which is sort of a blue purple. So I'm just laying a little bit of like yellow ochre, maybe a little bit of quinacridone gold back in there. And the paint on there is pretty heavy. And I know that I'm going to go back in and scrape, right? So I'm going to lift the light back out of here. Because I know I have all this good color underneath. So here's my credit card, my Visa. And see, it scrapes right through. And I was trying to remember how I did the first painting. I didn't get it exactly. Sometimes I can't remember how I've done things. So, but it's kind of the same idea. You know, if you don't know what to do with a daytime painting, just wash it with a beautiful Prussian or an Antwerp and make it a night painting. So I'm just going to deepen some of these trees a little bit. And again, it's most likely ultramarine blue and a little bit of sepia. I've been using a lot of sepia. You could also use Van Dyke brown for your really dark darks. There's my spray bottle. If it's getting a little too dry, you can lightly spray it. I can see it needs a little more balance, a little more dark in the bottom. And see, I put a lot of heavy paint on again, so I can lift it up with the credit card and the fingernails. And this is my flat brush. I'm actually lifting with a flat brush as well. So it shows you can run a wash over top of an entire painting and change the mood. And there I am again, just doing a little lifting. And at any point, you see if you don't like it, you can just erase the. You can just take your finger and. Oh, Geraldine says magic. Yeah, it's sort of magic, but not really. It's just. So again, the reminder that it can be like sculpture. And look, I'm taking pure Jaune Brilliant #1. Look at that, and putting light back on. So we as watercolorists I'm sort of using this almost like oil paint here in places. So I lay it down, I take it off, I lay it down, I take it off. There we go. And it really looks nice once I take off the tape. There we go. So that's kind of what it looks like. It's a little crazy. But again, a fun exercise. And let me show you, where's my desktop? Oh, here it is. So it's kind of chicken scratchy, but that's okay. It's a good exercise. Oh, and Stephanie says, this is so inspiring. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. Again, when we let ourselves, Carol's saying, amazing. What was the light color that you put on at the end? That was my Jean Brilliant #1. Jeune, Jean Brilliant #1. I get my Jean Brilliant #1 from Holbein. So Holbein. You don't want anybody else's Jean Brilliant because it's too pink. So Jean Brilliant #1, that's the color right there. Now, this is my Naples yellow. I get my Naples yellow from Winsor Newton. Daniel Smith does make a good Naples yellow. I know I'm throwing a lot of pigments at you. You don't want the Holbein Naples yellow because it's very pink and fleshy. But the next exercise I'm going to show you, I am actually going to use these two colors a lot. So you can actually put opaque paint back on top, and it's not showing up too much here. I could have put it on a little heavier. I like to lay my opaques on top when it's still a little bit wet, a little damp, because then they'll sort of melt into there. And I could even respray this and just touch it up with some of my, I could lay a little more on there. I could throw a little bit of my lavender or any of my opaques, my cobalt turquoise light or horizon blue. That's fun to use. So there's another exercise. And again, all I did was I did the background. I went from cool to warm, right? Cool to warm, however you want to. Blues, purples and blues down to reds and greens or whatever. Made some vertical lines, a tree mass, scraped into it. So that original scraping, the color that was underneath. So I got blues in my trees, I got reds in my trees, which I just find so exciting. So, this is one of my credit cards. So you just chop it up. This is maybe a little too even, but see, you can use that corner, see that rounded corner. You can use a sharp corner, but you don't want to, do too much damage. You could use it flat for rocks. This is such a great rock maker. So if you have them in a couple different sizes, you can get a variety of rock shapes. But what it means to is you have to use heavier paint. You can't do this with really watery paint. It won't lift up. So that's another exercise. And I have one more filmed. How are we doing on, okay, 6:10. I have one more filmed. This one, I did it. It's really fast, but it's really just to show you. I sped it up really fast because it's a lot of dripping and throwing and dripping and throwing. And I didn't know if it was going to actually turn into anything, except it did. But I never know if they're going to work or not. So I might not have included this. So anyway, let's see. Marilyn says, are you using gouache for your opaques? No, the opaques are, the Jean Brilliant #1 is not a gouache, and Naples yellow. So I don't have any gouache on my palette. Occasionally, I'll use a white gouache, like a permanent white, or that's really if I've lost too much of my highlights or something, I might come back in with or snow or something. But no, these are both, I am doing gouache on my own, but these are regular watercolor. They just are a little bit opaque. All right, the next, all right, so I'm going to show you. So this is one that's almost kind of in that Turner feel, like it's very abstract. There's a sense of light about it. We're not quite sure what it is. There's texture, it's luminous. And again, this was one I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I wanted to create a path of light and movement and luminosity and tell a story. But when I tell a story, it's more like I'm trying to paint a poem, right? It's not a full sentence or a full paragraph. It's a poem about light. So I was trying to sort of recreate this. I did this a couple years ago. I was trying to kind of recreate this. So here's, it's kind of funny. Here's my attempt to recreate the feeling of that same kind of thing. And it's quite silly because it's a lot of dripping and banging and upside down and spray it off and lay it on. And it ends up turning into something. And again, you can slow this down when you watch it on YouTube. There's not a whole lot to watch because it's just a lot of dripping, but here it is. And it must have worked because, so this is the Jaune Brilliant, and I know it's really fast. Jaune Brilliant, the whole thing, and Naples Yellow. And again, just thinking about a path of light. So I'm leaving a little bit of white paper. That's a little bit of cobalt turquoise. I'm going to use a little bit of lavender. So these are all opaques to start. So I don't know what's the top and what's the bottom. I'm just moving it around. Same thing, lavender, cobalt turquoise light, spray bottle, dripping. So this is a hard thing to sort of teach because it's completely out of control. There's a little bit of cerulean. And I still am aware, and I just wiped some of it off with a paper towel. Just going back in with more of my opaque. So more of the Jaune Brilliant, more of the Naples Yellow. Again, cerulean blue and lavender. And that paper is wet, very wet, but I'm using opaque, so they're heavier. So they sort of resist each other a bit. So I'm still at a point where I don't know if it's going to work or not. So obviously it works because I'm sharing it with you guys, but I didn't know it was going to work until the last minute. So, okay, here comes the light. There's the path of light. So I'm just looking for their interesting color. There's lavender, just lavender and neutral tint. And here is pure sepia. And this is that snowdrop brush. And that paper is wet, 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 but the sepia is really heavy, right? Almost pure paint. And I had no goal in mind here. I just am responding to that beautiful path of light in that background. Still just that's the number 12 Snowdrop, the Rosemary and Company brush. And now I'm just going back in there. I'm adding pure lavender, solid paint. There we go. So I think that's done. So let me show you. Boy, was I busy this morning. Hold on, let me find it. It's here somewhere. Oh, it actually turned out quite beautiful. I got a little bit of a thing there I got to get rid of, but you wouldn't think that you could get something like this from the mess that I had. But again, it was really about this piece of luminous light here, and then having a variety. Like, I love this because it's hard to name what these colors are, right? They're all sort of harmonious. It's kind of a green, violety gray. Oh, and Carol is saying, was that pure lavender added over the wet painting? The painting was done one go. The whole thing was wet and wet, right? So it was wet, and there it is, pure lavender. See, a chunk of paint. It sits right on the top, but it was damp enough that it sort of melted into that sepia, and that is just pure sepia. And you could use Van Dyke brown. You could use, burnt umber is not quite dark enough, but again, I could have used the Payne's gray. I like what the sepia does, though. It's a little warm. So pretty happy with this. Again, I had no idea if it was going to work, because originally on the piece of paper, it was this way. Because, let's see, there was lots of extra paper here on the bottom. So anyway, it turned out working this way. And I can just scrub that off with my little scrubby brush. Let's see. I think that was my fingerprint there. So again, you can use opaques. They're very powerful. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be opaque. It certainly creates a lot of atmosphere when you use those opaques. It almost looks like the Northern Lights a little bit. Let's see if I can just smudge that up. There it goes. There we go. Good enough. And then smudge, smudge, smudge. Doesn't have to go away altogether. So I'm kind of happy with it. It's a little crazy, but hey, that's like color therapy. So really, yeah, I did a lot of crazy trees today. All right. So those are all the things I have filmed. So now I'm going to show you these kind of things. I probably can only do one of them. But hopefully I'm giving you lots of ideas about laying paint down, not thinking that you can only use certain pigments as your underpainting. You can use opaques as your underpainting. You can use transparent color as your underpainting. You could use just the neutral tint exercises, one wash top to bottom, shifting the ratio of pigment to water. So let me just go back here. I'm going to move these aside. And again, I just happen to have, I had a piece of 300-pound paper. So these are really nice when you do them on 300-pound. I did tape it. You don't really have to. But these are fun. You could do it in you could do the whole color palette. So you could do a mostly orange one. You could do a mostly purple one. All right, here we go. Where am I? Oh, there we go. All right. So I can turn off that phone. How we do it on time? 6:20. Okay, so this is like an 8x16. These are tough to do any bigger than this because again, we're doing it kind of in one go. I gotta stand up. Hold on, I'll be right there. See, where did that go? Oh, I just want to show you, like this painting that looks so big when you look how teeny this little thing is. It's 7 by 9, 6 by 8. I probably got 1,000 likes on this little thing. It's so funny because I was just playing. But yeah, it's just on a piece of Stonehenge, 140 pound. I'll just show you. Here's the one I did the other night. It's got tape on it. Again, it was a piece of wrinkled hot press paper. Here's another kind of imagined landscape. Wet into wet, sepia and neutral tint, the entire painting. Look what sepia and neutral tint do together. Isn't that beautiful? And then the texture comes just from the spray bottle. And again, working on an angle. That angle gives us all that movement. So this is turned into a completely different painting than how I started it. I don't even know what I started with, but turned into some kind of a river. All right. Anyway, here I go. All right, I'm going to try the green one. And I'm going to do it as and again, you can do a color, any color that you want to. I just like the chartreusey one because that's kind of my favorite color. I got married in chartreuse. My kitchen was chartreuse. So I'm just I'm wetting it. Let me just move that out. And it's 300 pound paper, so it is darn tough. When I did the last two that I showed you, I let the water sit for quite a while to really soak in. You could just start with a yellow on top. Here, I'll just show you. It doesn't ever have to be the colors that I'm using, right? You could start with a yellow and watch. You're just getting it on there. And when we're doing wet and wet, the thing you want to remember is the paper's already wet. So there's less water in our mixtures, right? And look what a flat brush does. Look how quickly I get paint on there with a flat brush. Now, if I was going to use a little brush like this, it would take lots of time, right? So this is my Robert Simmons Skyflow 1.5 inch white sable. You can get it Tick Click, Cheap Joe's, Jerry's. The first one I had of these I had for 25 years. If you're looking for a good flat brush, if I had to pick only one brush in my life, it would be this one. It's just great for wet and wet. So again, you can just lay that paint down, or here's a color I don't usually have, but I just pulled it out because it's fun. This is green gold, and it's like chartreuse right in a right in a tube. I can add some of that down. I might even add a little bit of Viridian to that. Again, however you get a spring green, there we go. And we want to be careful about having too much water, because if there's too much water, this paint is not gonna hold, right? It's not gonna, let me move this out of the way. That's a little glare. Sorry, everything is shaking. Just gonna get rid of some of, there we go. So with wet and wet, as we move through the painting, we use less water and more paint, right? Because I'm trying to deepen this. There we go. Look at that. Oh. And those lines will disappear. You don't ever have to worry about those lines kind of, unless you're doing this, right? And I don't usually ever do that. So when I'm using my flat brush, it's more like a dance, right? Oh, that's nice. Isn't that pretty? And you could use a large round to do this, but it would take a lot more time to get this on here. That's looking pretty good. We know it's going to dry 30% lighter, right? So we got to push it even further. Oopsie. I grabbed some cadmium yellow by accident. Here we go. And really, all I'm doing is I'm floating. You see that? I'm just floating the paint in the water that's sitting on that surface. And I vary my brush stroke, right? I'm not just going back and forth the same way. Little dance here, little dance there. Maybe some stronger yellow. All right, so now I'm going to move into making some shape on here, right? So if we look at, let me pull up the ones I did the other day. So this gives you a chance. So this is what we're working towards, right? Exact same thing. Exact same thing. I could leave that there as a little reference. So how do we get those darks, right? I'm going to start with, here's a little bit of cobalt turquoise light, or you could use cerulean, you could use some cobalt. We just have to get something that is a little bit darker, right? A little darker. And watch, I'm going to build some shape, build shape, right? So there's not a lot of water in this mixture because I want it to hold. And do you see how, the, I have that stronger value and it holds. I can make a shape with it. A little bit of glare. And it takes some time to build up these values. So we could use a little bit of cobalt blue, and I do use a lot of paint on these. And I don't paint like this all the time. It's just one of the things I like to do if I want to play. this is the kind of stuff I do. And again, all I'm doing, do you see that? I'm floating the paint in there. That's a cobalt turquoise. Let me grab a little cerulean and a little ultramarine. There we go. I got to make it a little bit darker. There we go. See that value? And watch this. If I hold this up, you see there's not a lot of water in that. I'm tilting my palette. Not a lot of water. Kind of like a heavy cream. And again, just floating that on there. I got to move this out of the way because I'm going to start to tilt this. So here's ultramarine blue. So I'm going even darker. And see how I'm starting to be able to get an edge here. As it dries, you can get harder edges. And to go in and get some of that cerulean. And again, I'm just not too much water, just floating this on here. I gotta put this on an angle because I can't see it with the glare. There we go. All right, so floating a little. There we go, that's better. So I know it looks really dark. It is pretty heavy. Watch, this is how heavy it is. See, we can scratch right through there. And it's a little tricky. Again, ultramarine. We could add like a little neutral tint to that to darken it even further. Watch this, I'm going to turn it upside down because, let's see, let me move that out of that way. So I'm turning it upside down so the pigment will move this way. And I'm going to take a spray bottle. As you can see, you're getting a little bit of glare on there. So now I'm going to take a spray bottle and start to ask this to move a little bit. And it's hard to show you because I'm holding it straight up. Watch, there we go. So you can see how this is starting to drip, starting to get a little bit of weight in there. And again, this is pretty tricky because, better lay it flat. Deeper.
Hey guys, just bear with for a moment. It looks like Sarah's screen just froze for a sec.
And if you try this, try it on a small. See, internet connection is unstable. Here we go. Well, hopefully we're all okay out there. All right, here I'm back. Yay. Yeah, that's funny. Somebody else had a frozen screen. All right, so just deepening this a little bit. And again, what's really fun to do is you can take a flat brush. So if I want to clean up this edge, watch, I can just go right in there. Because I have all this beautiful paint in here, right? So there's all this lovely layers of this pigment in here. And watch, I can even lift up through there. There we go. So I can break up that edge a little, and I'm just using my flat brush and sort of creating a little bit of something there, right? So lift, and then I clean my brush, right? And then I'm gonna lift a little. And at this point, I might be able to say, gosh, I'm gonna take a little bit of, and this is, again, where it gets tricky. You don't want a lot of water. I'm just gonna float a little teeny bit of lavender, maybe right there, and let it tilt in that direction. And again, this is, to me, it's kind of give and take. We're not exactly sure what we're gonna get. I am gonna darken this. Oh, what flat brush? This flat brush is my Robert Simmons Skyflow 1.5-inch white sable. And this is something I've had for 20 years. It is an Isabey, Isabey. It's got so much paint on it. I don't know. It's a French brush. I don't even know what the number is, but you can just look up Isabey flats. But you want a flat that is a little bit firm and comes to a good point here on the end. All right, so I'm going to make some darker dark. So neutral tint, ultramarine blue, right? Maybe a little bit of cerulean blue. Not a lot of water. Just gonna float some paint across here. And really short strokes just to sort of release that pigment. It's tricky. It's pretty tricky. So I'm gonna spray it, right? And I'm gonna let it sort of drip. I know you guys can't see it here. I'll let it drip this way. So it's a lot of using a spray bottle, tilting, letting the paint, there it goes. Oh, that's just gorgeous. And this is something a brush just can't do. Wait, you're gonna love this when I can turn it back. Here we go. So look what that does on its own. The paint sort of separate a little bit. I've got some of those nice darks in there. It's really wet, but it's also got some nice heavy paint in there. I might just float like a little bit of, I know what I'll do. I'm going to take a little bit of cerulean. I like the cerulean from Winsor Newton. I've tried the other ceruleans and they're a little chalky to me. So watch this. I'm just going to float that on there, just touching it, right? Just because I want that to move. But watch, we can also kind of throw it a little bit. Oopsie. All right, so now I'm gonna again tilt it. And all I can do is give you suggestions, but it's hard for me to say this is exactly how you do this. I'm just experimenting. Oh, that's just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. So look at those blues starting to float on there. If we want to bring this line back again, oops, nice clean brush. I take the excess water out. Look at that, just pick that right up again. Pick that up. And watch, I can always say, gosh, let's have a little bit of light, right? All I'm doing is lifting up a little bit of that there. And this is too solid up here. So I'm gonna let this sort of drip. So I'm spraying it right around there. Boy, that's a little hot, the temperature. Just spraying this, trying to get this to move. Watch this, I'm gonna put a little lavender or cerulean on the top there. So Again, get this to move at the top a little. And you can't really have too much of a goal in mind when you're working this way, because the paint is gonna do what it wants, right? The paint is gonna take over. Watch, maybe there's a little bit of light right here. Just use a paper towel and lift up a teeny bit of light there. Getting there. I like what that's doing. And you can always tilt it on the side this way. And you can do them larger like that. And then you could always, you know, kind of cut it down a little bit. Oh, I like what that's doing. I like to clean up the paper towel edge. Oh, that's got some good stuff. Look how this top edge, all these greens are moving back down into here. So if we want them to stop, what do? We either lay it flat, or I'm going to turn it this way again. I don't know where that reflection is from. What is that from? Let me turn off these overheads. Oh, that's better. Aha. That's better. So I'm going to get a dark, so you could use Payne's Gray, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue. Watch this, really dark paint right here on the bottom. And you don't have to do it everywhere. So what does that little bit of dark do that makes that light show up even more? Let's see. Somebody's back. There we go. See, that's starting to work. I might again spray that top, and you can always take a paper towel or a tissue and sort of lift into there to get a little more atmospheric top. But again, as long as these are wet or damp, you can keep working on them. I'm going to take a little bit of, here's lavender and my rosemary number 12 snowdrop. And when I throw paint, right, if I'm going to throw heavy paint, there's very little water in this mixture, right? It's almost like butter, almost. There's a little bit of water, just enough water that it will leave the brush. Watch. So splattering, and I could even sort of touch it in a couple places, and then it won't stay that bright. It's going to melt. It's going to melt in there, but you're going to get this lovely sort of veil on top of that. Yeah, I love to tilt it. I'm sorry I don't have cameras like every which way. Look how pretty that is. Now that most of that's going to disappear. And I'm just going to lift that sort of moon shape again. Maybe let some of that sort of, there we go. And at any point, if you're not sure what to do, you could just leave it alone. You could let it dry. What I can see is this is a little too light now. And here I thought it was so, oops, I gotta clean my palette. Any questions on this technique? Again, it's just such a fun way to play with color, right? And to me, this is like color therapy. This kind of painting to me is very healing and very nurturing, and I get so wrapped up in how beautiful the color is. Yeah, Cindy says it's relaxing. Yeah. And again, it doesn't have to be anything. This always these remind me of sort of summer with fireflies. You know, a summer night and you can hear the crickets. It could be daytime too, but when I started painting these little things, my late husband, Paul, and we used to go for a walk. He was also a painter. He was an oil painter. We would go for a walk and we would look at a scene and we would say, all right, let's go back to our studios and you paint it how you see it and I'll paint it how I see it. So we would both go to our studios and then come back together a couple hours later and sort of share the paintings that we had done. He was a very kind of dreamy painter as well. So so that's where these sort of started, was interpreting a summer day while walking with the person you love. Now there's a poem. Watch, I can still lift this, lift that a little, lift that a little. Maybe we'll pop a little teeny bit of, I need something clean. Watch, we can touch a little bit of orange, a little bit of warmth in there. And this is going to dry a lot lighter than the way it is. So I know I could take it even further in terms of the dark in there, because it's probably going to end up being flat. You can see those darks, see how dark I got this one to go. And because those darks are that dark, look how beautiful the light is, right? That's just lavender splattered on there. And really this is just tilting, dropping in paint, tilting until it feels done. I never know when they're done. When I'm happy, that's when they're done. So anyway, this one could use more paint. How are we doing on time? Oh my gosh, how did that time get away from us? That's amazing. So again, I could put a little more dark in here, and I'm gonna, add either neutral tin or some Payne's gray in there to get that ultramarine blue as dark as I want. And watch, again, just floating, just barely. I'm not house painting, right? Because that's going to disturb all that pigment. So I'm just trying to float it on top, right? Just touch it. Because I know I'm going to do this, right? I'm going to tilt it. I'm going to use a spray bottle and let that, oh, that's nice. I'll show you in just a sec. Oh, there it goes. Oh, it's fabulous. There we go. It almost looks like a flame up in there. See, that's just from laying in those couple of little darks. And now I see I could, again, it's pretty wet, but I could splatter more lavender. I could touch a little lavender. And I'll probably just deepen this green the slightest bit, but don't have to, right? There's no, that might be too dry. So watch, I'm gonna lightly spray that and just, there we go. Oh, that's better. See, got rid of some of that light. Ooh, those are fun. Fireflies. I would say we could probably call this one pretty much done. I can tilt it that way. And Marion says, is it better to splatter with a natural or synthetic brush? I haven't, it doesn't really matter. They both seem to work. I don't like to splatter with a giant brush. This is my, I like something that has a good point. Now it's telling me my internet connection is unstable again, so I'm not sure why. There we go. So I would say it doesn't really matter what you use, whether it's synthetic or they both kind of do the same thing. You just don't want something you don't want to throw with something big and fat, right? It's better to use something a little bit smaller. And let's see, super thank you for a wonderful reminder to loosen up, lovely demos. Oh, you're so welcome. I would say that's probably as much paint as this thing is going to take right now. And I'll show you a quick reveal on here. Why it's so much fun having tape, because you can see these gorgeous edges. I'll show you a little bit of edge. Let's see. Yeah, great exercises, Benita. Oh, thanks. I'm so glad you liked it, you guys. So lots of different things to do. Tara is going to get this to you hopefully by tomorrow. And again, you're going to be able to slow everything down. And hopefully I've given you some information and some tools about how to play, right? How to just be kind to yourself and try things. For me, I think my best paintings come from when I'm playing and when I'm discovering and when I'm just trying something new. So Tara, do you want to step in and
Yes, absolutely. This was so much fun, Sarah. Thank you.
Oh gosh,
Mesmerized.
was it okay?
I loved it.
Filming. Oh my gosh.
Wow. Well, I will be uploading and converting the video tonight and getting it out to you tomorrow morning. If you don't hear from me by the end of the day tomorrow, please shoot me an email. That probably just means that I have your email address wrong, or maybe it went into your spam folder, but just hit me up and let me know, and I will make sure that you get that copy. And that will be available to you for Sarah. How long did we say this one is available? The video is
Oh, we can just do a month.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, we can do a month. And then Jane wants to know what your email is.
Oh, I am going to type it right in here, right, so everyone can see it.
And we had a couple other things, and I can mention it, but the next one I'm doing, we're going to do anemones. And we're going to do a technique called disappearing purple, where we're going to paint these anemones, but we're going to paint all the shadow shapes first with purples. So that's at the end of the month. And then to celebrate our 2-year anniversary of doing these, we're doing a free class, free demo the first week of April. And it's free. You just have to sign up because there's 98 spaces. I think there's already 30 gone. Yeah. 35.
So please but that's free. Yes, share it with your friends and anybody who hasn't had a chance to join us, and this is their opportunity to jump in and see how much fun we have. So thank you again, everybody, so much. And I will make sure that you get the video tomorrow, and that you will get the signups for Sarah's next class and for the free class in our April anniversary. My goodness, 2 years.
It's amazing.
2 years. Yay.
I know. And Tara's in charge of the recording. I don't record it, so I don't have it. So you have to get it through her. Yes. And it will be available for a month on YouTube. And remember, you can you can slow it down so you'll be able to watch the madness at a slower speed if you want to. But hopefully you learn something from this.
I love it.
I'm
I
so
love it. Some of the
silly.
madness. That's
I'm so
great.
silly. Oh, happy madness.
Oh, well,
Um,
thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you again, everybody, for joining us and supporting the LPCA. And I will be in touch tomorrow. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your evening. And we will talk to you soon.
Love everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.